Hello dressmakers and friends, welcome again on the channel. In this video I'll be sharing with you how to make the trending Veekee James inspired rose sleeves. We are going to begin with our basic sleeve pattern. I have a video linked up here. It's about how to draft a basic sleeve. So here I have my elbow line right here, and I'm going to be connecting that to my wrist right here. Connect it just like this. And then we are just simply going to be cutting out the excess pattern paper. Go ahead to watch how to create this basic sleeve in this video. Okay, so after this process, the next thing we are going to do is to notch and label the part that is going to be the back and the front on the pattern paper. Now the next thing we are going to do after setting our pattern paper like this is to mark that elbow line. After that is done, we are also going to be placing this pattern paper on the fabric. We are going to be folding the fabric just as you see me right now. And this fabric which you are folding right now is going to be the lining fabric of the sleeve. You want to cut out the lining fabric of the sleeve first before you cut out the draped part that will form the rose. While you cut out your lining fabric, don't forget to add your seam allowance which you are going to be needing to join the sleeves together. After which you are going to be notching this elbow point even on this lining piece. Don't forget to notch the forearm of the sleeve as well so that you don't get it mixed up while you are fixing the sleeve. Open up the sleeve and notch the forearm, then mark that point. After which you are going to be setting this lining piece, just set it aside, then you will start working on the main fabric for the rose petals. Now take your pattern paper and you are going to be cutting this place. You are not going to be cutting it through. Ensure that you still have a little to hold it together. Open it up this way and you are going to be cutting the center, but this time you are going to be cutting the center through. Then flip it open just like this. I hope you see the way this is a little bit out of the camera, but I'm going to arrange it so that you can see. Alright, flip it open just like this. Now put it on a fresh pattern paper so that you are able to use it to cut the main fabric. Put it on a fresh pattern paper like this at an angle of 90 degrees. Did you see how I folded it? Just like this. Now place that other sleeve part which you just slashed. Place it on it at an angle just like this. Ensure that you have a good fullness in this place. What you have here, the amount of fullness you have here is going to determine how full your rose will turn out to be. So ensure that you have enough pattern paper. I'm not sure I have enough pattern paper right here, so I'm still going to be adding more pattern paper so that I can have more room on this pattern paper. Now that I have enough pattern paper, you can take a look at it. I'm going to be measuring it on one end and on the other end to be sure that what I have on both sides are equal. Then I'm going to be cutting all of the excess paper all around these sleeves. Now that both sides are equal, go ahead to add a tape, or you can use your gum or your glue to stick the new pattern paper towards the previous one. Okay, ensure that you stick it together so that it becomes one fresh pattern paper. Okay, so as it is right now, the next thing you are going to do is now mark all of these points to see where you are going to be cutting out and to see where you are going to be having on it. After cutting out all of the excess around your pattern paper, the next thing will be to note the point where you will be needing notches. Remember that this is the center. You need to notch that point when you're cutting it on your fabric so that by the time you need to sew it together just like this, you will know what point needs to meet. Alright, so this you are going to sew together just like this. Fold your fabric this way just like you normally do when you're cutting your sleeve. Alright, make it to be on fold just like this. Then I'm going to be placing the pattern paper on it just so I'm able to see the quantity that is enough to cut for my pattern conveniently. Alright, you are going to be cutting this open, alright, but I'm just folding it like this so that we will know the quantity we need for this pattern. So we are going to be cutting this quantity out right now. What we have here right now will be enough. So notch the center. For the center line, notch it on top of the sleeve and also at the hem of the sleeve. Now open the fabric and place it on top just like this. Ensure that the center line of your pattern matches with the center line of the notch on your fabric. Okay, so you can use a pin to hold the fabric onto the pattern paper. Then before you now start cutting, ensure that all these notch points meet in the right places. Alright, now I'm going to be using the pin to hold my pattern just like this. After this, we are going to be cutting out this pattern on the fabric with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm using 1/2 inch seam allowance to cut this fabric, but if I'm going to be doing this again, I'm going to be using 3/4 or 1 inch seam allowance. That way you are sure that by the time you are done with all of the manipulations, the seam will not be tight. Ensure that you notch all of those points. They are really necessary. It helps you and it guides you when you are sewing all the fabric together. So cut it all around just like this. Now here is what we have after we are done cutting. Take a look at how this looks. Now you are going to be taking off your pattern paper from the fabric. Before you do that, ensure that you note this point. You are going to be sewing this just like this. Alright? After taking out my pattern paper, here is what I have, and I'm just going to be arranging this carefully so that all this notch meets. Remember that this notch is for the center line of the sleeve. Okay, so we are going to be sewing this part that I'm pinning right now. We are going to be sewing it just as you have seen me pin it like this. Sew it to that notch point and stop. Okay, now that I'm done sewing, this is what I have. Alright, this is what I have when I'm done sewing, and I'm just going to be trimming off some excess so that I can reduce the bulk right there. I'm going to be notching that top part. Then you are going to be picking your sleeve lining this way. Ensure that the notch on this sleeve lining also aligns with the notch on your main fabric. That is how you will know that you are doing the right thing. Now take a look at how I'm draping this. Now take a look at how beautiful this looks already. That's just the process, guys. We just need to pick it and pleat it. Just flip it, manipulate the fabric just as you have seen me do, and then you are going to be placing it on your lining fabric. All your notches has to meet. Center line on the center line of the main fabric. Ensure that you pin it together. The forearm and the forearm of the main fabric and the lining. The back arm and the back arm of the lining and the main fabric also. Okay, pin it all together just like this. Next, you are going to try to arrange it, but you can leave the arrangement for now. Go ahead to turn your lining with the fabric. You can take out 1/2 inch more on this lining so that it helps to pull the main fabric into the lining to sit properly. Okay, don't forget I took out 1/2 inch from the lining alone. Now I have gone ahead to stitch it. This is what it looks like. Now turning it to the right side, here is what we have. Don't forget to under stitch, and then you can now arrange everything together. Take a look at how I'm doing it once again. This rows just form by itself if you can follow through with these guidelines. Alright, it's not something tedious. I'm sure it's something that you will be able to do. Okay, now ensure that all of these notches meet, then pin all of this together. After pinning all of these things together, you are now going to begin to arrange all of the rows and petals. Arrange them properly in place. Ensure you take your time to arrange it to the final look that you would like to have it to be. Now, after you have arranged, you are going to pick your pins, then you are going to start pinning. Ensure that it's still sitting on the table just like that, just as we have arranged it. Don't move it, alright? You are going to be unstitching to form. But first, pin everything in place just as it is. Ensure that it does not shift so much. As you pin, arrange, you're going to be pinning all through, alright? Ensure that you are patient enough with this process, because that is the game changer. If you do not pin it properly or you do not unstitch it properly, by the time you lift this sleeve up, it's going to scatter, and you don't want that. So take your time to pin everything in place. After you have pinned everything, the same way it is while it is with the pins is now how you are going to begin to unstitch. Alright? Like I said, you have to be patient with this process, but the end product is always worth it. I always tell you guys, it's always beautiful at the end. Just ensure that you give it what it takes. Now, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, if you are just here for the first time, welcome to this family. Don't forget to subscribe. If you enjoy watching this video, give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm to send it to more people that would need it. Alright, thank you. Now, just with the pin in it, ensure that you do not remove the pin. You now start unstitching. Unstitch as neatly as possible. You want it to be very neat while you are unstitching. Ensure that the pins are still intact. Let the pin still be there while you unstitch. Now this process is going to take a while, and I had to do this off the camera, and stitching alone took me about an hour. So you have to be patient with this process and stitch all. Finish unstitching before you remove all the pins. Ensure that the pins are still there while you unstitch. Now after I am done unstitching, here is what it looks like. Okay, I'm now going to begin to remove my pins after it has been unstitched. Okay, after removing the pin, you will see that everything is still intact. It's not going to scatter. Alright, so taking our time to do this has really paid off at this point. By the time you flip it, you see it's still going to be intact. No matter how much you flip it, the rose is going to be intact just like that. Take a look at how this is on the back. By the time I'm doing this the next time, I think I'm going to first stitch these rose petals first, so that I can have a neat finish on that lining before turning it with the lining. I have to use a fabric to stitch the rose first before turning it with the lining. The next thing you are going to do now is go up and sew this side seam of these sleeves together. After sewing the side seam of the sleeve, here is what I have. I've also gone ahead to overlock this side seam and also this armhole part as well. Now take a look at how beautiful our sleeve is looking like right now. All you need to do is do this for 2 sleeves if you are going to be making this into a dress. But for the sake of this tutorial, I hope this video has been helpful. Take a look at how beautiful it is. It's not getting rumpled, it's not falling off. So I hope you find this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.